today.
Yes, you know I love it here. I mean, there's just something here that, I don't know, it just speaks to me really deeply. Maybe it's the quiet I feel when I get out here, and then you have the chickens and all the good things that make you feel at home.
I think so too, and then just it's very pastoral. That's what I tell people with the sheep and the chickens, and you have the so much green space, which not everyone gets to enjoy that.
Yeah, it's a step away from your worries for a little bit and reconnects you to things that matter in a different way. So I'm trying to get into really gardening, and I thought, well, who else could I ask that's someone that I admire that gardens? And I think it's important, and I think today more than ever, it's really becoming even more important because we're not in charge of our food supply at all. We are asked to pay exorbitant prices for food that really maybe we could grow ourselves, and take that little bit of power for ourselves. So, do you feel the same way about gardening as far as like, this is a way to take ownership of your food?
Yes, and when we first started our farm, we were primarily like 75% produce, and as a business, we switched more into flowers. That's a kind of a different model, but still at my house, or even this year, because like you said, I mean, the price of food is, I just can't even believe it, at the grocery store. So we have a new little bed that used to be our compost area that we have poppies in right now, Icelandic poppies, but that's gonna be our little food kind of area.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can keep the raccoons and the squirrels and the deer. But like, just to put it in perspective, before you came, I went to the co-op and we're building a new trial raised bed. I think a packet of everyday cucumber seeds that we eat a lot of cucumbers. I don't know about the listeners if they do. I love it in salads. I love it. Just I can just eat the cucumber sandwiches.
Yeah.
My daughter just did that last week. We were at a tea and she saw that and it was so good. And I bought cucumbers. The full packet of seeds. I think they were ready in 55 days. I went at the farmer's co-op. It was $1.50 for like 35 seeds.
Yeah, I mean, really, just and I don't know if it's the age I'm getting to, but I'm feeling the need to do those things, like to grow things and to get my hands dirty and to eat better. All those sorts of things, they're sort of calling to me right now. And I'm like, people just need to know how.
Yes, and years ago we taught planting and designing raised bed gardens. I haven't done that in a few years, but a lot of it, I tell people your success is only as good as your soil. And I really encourage people to spend the money on the great soil. I mean, because that is
you're eating out of it.
You're eating out of it.
Yes.
And that is a way to control, what you're eating. I mean, it's in the soil, and also not putting your food into like. I'm big against the treated lumber.
Yeah.
Because
Okay. Yeah. Doug and I were having this discussion, and this was what I was getting, because I'm going to get the good soil. I understand that that's important. And he's like, I don't think you're supposed to do treated lumber.
Right, and for a long time when we had raised beds here, we had cedar beds. They don't last as long, there's a trade-off. But if you're, like the bed I'm about to do is for cut flowers. So I'm not as concerned about the wood being treated because we're not gonna eat the flowers.
Right.
But anything like the bed that I have at home, it's so rickety because it was untreated. I bought it from somewhere like out west 11 or 12 years ago. I mean, it's kind of piecemeal together because it isn't gonna last forever, but really,
Lots of character.
Is it really supposed to last forever?
No.
So, there's a lot you can do, but I always tell people invest in the soil. And you don't necessarily have to have a huge raised bed. I mean, I've seen people do just, containers on the patio.
Right.
I mean, there's lots of herbs that you can do.
Yeah.
Even like a cherry tomato plant gives you a lot of yield. And then lettuces. I know when I first started my garden at home, I had a lot of cool weather flowers. I think that what we get into here, a lot of people think, oh, I can only grow things April through August, and there's a big difference. Now, I will say I planted at my house bed this year in October, lots of Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, rainbow Swiss chard, the greens, kale, and it should have made it. However, that December freeze, it will not make it to 3 degrees. But in our climate, I mean, but that's an outlier. I mean, I should be, having a beautiful garden right now, but that is an outlier. But there's things like that you can grow in your garden, and you can make very simple little row covers, to cover things. It doesn't have to cost a fortune.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, even if you just let love tomatoes, and you want fresh tomatoes, there's a start, right? Because tomatoes aren't cheap.
No.
I mean, it's ridiculous, and I do like to eat well, and I'm a primarily fruit and vegetable girl. And it's hard for me to go in there and like look at and wanna get organic, because you want to, you understand, like you said, the soil it's in is important.
Right.
Right.
And it's just, I think it's also, for me, whether it's flowers or it's food, it's being in awe that you take that tiny seed
Yeah,
and then it's giving to us.
yes,
So we need to be giving to that seed in a wonderful soil, is what I tell people. We
Yeah.
need to be giving back. We can't just take, as a society, we just try and take.
yes, have you read Great and Sweet Grass?
No, but when I saw
gosh.
your post last night, I went to Amazon and looked at it. I'm gonna order the book, but I thought that was
That's what the
interesting.
whole book is about. It's about, giving back. It's okay to take, but you have to give back,
Right.
and you take responsibly.
Yes.
And you're mindful of what you do, and it is beautiful. It reads like poetry.
Right. And that's what, when people say, why did you start this farm? It was to teach our children about sustainability and giving back to the land. And we try to collect all the manure from the animals, and we compost it, and we
Yeah.
give back. And although we're here today and you see an empty field, we did have a beautiful cover crop until that frost. We had the oilseed, daikon radishes, and mustards. And we were it really helps your soil.
Yeah.
But like I said, this is a once in our life, that
Yeah.
cold. I hope, knock on
Let's
wood,
knock on
we
wood,
hope, but
yeah.
we're always trying, you can't just take from the land, you have to give back to have lovely crops. And we use things like, this afternoon we're spraying with like a seaweed and fish emulsion, and it smells horrible, but it's a great way to give back to feed the plants in a way that isn't something synthetic.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I admire that. So that, I do have questions. So where do you, first, do you prefer to grow your garden from seed? Like if someone's doing a container or a raised bed, and we're not talking about a big planting, would you recommend seed or?
if you're a science person like me, I love to do it from seed, but if you're more, I'm on a budget, because you have to think about the cost of seed starting and the soil, you have to have a certain type of soil to seed. Like a lot of the things that you grow in summer can't, like tomatoes, I wouldn't recommend direct seed. Now there are some things like bush beans, things you can direct seed.
Right.
But for me, you can find sources, like I know I got some really good things in the pandemic. I had this huge bed at my house, it was full of blackberries, and then my daughter's like, she wanted to garden, so for Mother's Day we went, and I didn't have time to do that, but I think CT Gardens, I think in Hicksville,
Yeah.
they had great selection of plants
Okay.
that were unusual,
Yeah.
that weren't just the big box store.
Okay.
So in that way, it can be a little bit more budget friendly, I think, if you don't start. But for me, I like the science behind,
Yeah, you
the
like
heat.
to see
I like
it.
the heat mat, and I like
Yeah.
putting it in the soil and how many days
Yeah.
to germination, and
You like geeking out on it.
yes. So, but I mean, that's not for everybody, because there can't seed starting. There can be failures, and what
Yeah.
you're wanting people to have is success, because that's why they're going to continue to garden.
Yeah.
If failure's not always fun. You learn from that, but we
Sure.
want, I think a pre-start is usually better. I feel like probably the biggest, when we taught the raised bed class, that I would hear is people would plant the plant,
Yeah.
water it once and walk away.
Oh,
And
no,
you need
can't
to
do that.
there's a lot of, every day until the roots are established, I would
Yeah.
check the soil and water it. So there's a lot of science, and I think that would be, sometimes I would see people, well, when did you water it? Well, I water it when I planted it. I'm like,
Well, I get kind of hippy-dippy with my plants. I've grown to love my plants, so I really think of them as friends. So, I know
Right.
it sounds kind of woo-woo, but, I've noticed once I started to take that attitude with them, they started doing really great.
they do.
And I pay more attention to them because I'm like, oh, they need me,
Yeah.
And it's been a cool thing. So now I'm growing this jungle in my house, and Doug's like, what's happening in here?
That's how I am. And my thing, I've even gotten really into the propagation tunnel.
Okay.
Like I've fallen
Yeah.
down another hole.
Rabbit
So
hole, yeah.
so like yesterday we were cutting back some snapdragons. They're supposedly, I've never done this, very easy to this pinching it, where you have to pinch it to get more blooms.
Okay.
You can root that. So we have these, I'll show you all how we were rooting those. Or we've got some zinnias that we started. We were just wanting to see if the seeds, they were older seeds, would they work? And we started on January 18th, and now they're giant, and we can't put them out. So we were like, let's try and propagate. So we're trying to cut from that to buy us time.
Did you take botany class?
I did not. My dad was a botanist though, so I grew up kind of around, him having a
And the
seed starting chamber
terminology,
and that
yeah.
kind of thing. But that is, I think it's a certain person who, I have friends who have never gardened, they start and then they fall down that rabbit hole.
I
So
like it.
it's kind of what,
Yeah.
but it's also back to the same concept of, I could just take that cutting and throw it down, but I could try and double my stock, which tomatoes are very easy to propagate. I mean, those kind of things.
Yeah.
The other thing I've really fallen down the rabbit hole this last year is edible flowers. And
I love that
oh
idea.
yeah,
On
so I have,
salads and
yes,
cheese.
so we're doing a lot of nasturtium
Okay.
right now, and we haven't, and we tasted the plants, and it's one of those things too that I was like, oh, we're starting it early, but I just got ants in my hand, so. But it's very peppery, it kind of reminds you of the leaves, you can eat the flowers and the leaves, it sort of reminds you of a radish flavor. I'll let you taste some when we go up to our seed starting little house.
Yeah.
And then we have, like it's called a butterfly pea, it's from Thailand, and it's a blue flower, and we have, the germination rate is typically terrible, you can make teas out of it. And it's very beautiful, like if you're listening, look up, butterfly pea tea, and it's a beautiful blue.
Oh, I
Almost.
do. I have that tea. There's a, well, it's got it in it, and when you let it brew, it's kind of a purpley periwinkle.
Yes, and then you can add, I can't remember if it's lemon or something, I don't know if it's because the citric acid turns it pink, so a lot of people make butterfly
I'll
tea
do
lemonade.
that tonight.
I have to look, like, I think you can go to Instagram and put like butterfly
Ew.
pea tea, and then I just go down the hole for that too. So we're trying, and it's a climber, so I think it'd be a beautiful
I mean, you
climber.
can make tinctures and the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, I just so the edibles for this year, because last year, I think a lot of people don't realize, even like cosmos, the zinnias, we grow a lot of flowers that are edible. Like I put them on some cream fresh, and different things that edible has really kind of been. We're doing barrage, I think is how you pronounce it. And it's a really nice one that has a cucumber flavor. So I have a lot of new things I'm trying this
It
year.
seems kind of elegant.
It does, and I, even at like the violas and pansies are edible.
Yeah.
And around Christmas, I took just the ice cube, with water, let it freeze, put the flowers, water, and I had beautiful. And even it was in my kids' sparkling grape juice. It still was beautiful. It made it fun and elegant, I think.
love that.
So I have gone down that. There, different areas that you
It's
can fall down.
creativity too.
Right.
It's thinking outside the box a little bit.
Right. So we'll see.
I want to taste some. So, how long have you been a gardener?
I would say I always had like on my back porch, years ago, 20 years, 25 years ago, but like I would say I became a farmer 11 years ago. Because, I think there's maybe 2 years before that I became more into the raised bed and square foot gardening. But for now, I do it in such a larger scale. But you still go back to a lot of those basic concepts. Like it's interesting today when we went to get the soil for this new raised bed, and we're going to be selling in a few weeks a curated grow your own cut flower garden. And so we've been growing all these seeds and we're bumping them up. So I went back to that basic knowledge from years ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, let me get I need to go and look in my Dropbox. I've got to find, that recipe for the soil.
It's
So-
gonna be the things you remember.
Yeah, so I went back to the basics. So, and a lot of that is still, like we just, if you were here, you were overlooking one of the gardens where we had the cover crop. So we took every leaf we could find this week all over town, and we just took a huge trailer, we blew the leaves in a tarp, and we dumped it here because we don't have. It's another great way to give back to the soil. Like
That's
gold, you see people out blowing their yard and taking the leaves and like it's the worst thing ever. Like that is gold to put in your bed.
I posted something about that during the fall, and I'm like, it's really good for your lawn to just let the leaves sit there, and people were like, oh my gosh.
Where my kids had their playground in our backyard, we had just like a little kind of like almost like had railroad ties, and then we did like mulch, and over time, of course, the playground's gone, but that's where we always blew the leaves. And like that soil is just the most beautiful, perfect, rich. Because all it's been is that decomposition of those leaves. So I think that's one of the things people, like, oh my goodness, it's a leaf. It's here. But it's like the best thing. It's like gold to put in your garden.
It's there for a reason, right? It's there for a reason.
Yes.
I mean, we have to clean it up.
Right.
So, So you've been doing this a while.
Yes.
So right now you're really more on the flower side of things personally.
We're on the flower, just because for us, the seasons are more limited when you're growing produce. and we can have a 12-year season because
Yeah.
we have like the drying room in here now. If you come see back here, dry flowers, and
it's
then
so pretty.
thank you. And then we do the press, like all the artwork. So we're pressing also. So, and you can't necessarily do that with vegetables. However,
Yeah.
personally, I enjoy the vegetables just because I think it's a great way to monitor what you're eating. And I try and add, like you said, for me, like I add new things in. Like last year, the big thing, like this year, the edibles, flowers are kind of there. Last year we grew the loofah sponges.
Oh, I wanna do that.
Yeah, so I have,
Yeah, I've got a friend who's gonna bring me the
yeah,
seeds
so
and
that is you know, it looks like a giant zucchini, and then once it dries, and then we peel it, and then that's your sponge.
they're super cool. Right
Yeah,
there.
they're really, that was really like just such a fun thing to
Yeah.
do. Now you have to, I tell people you have to respect the loofah because we built arches. We have one arch that's remaining, and it was
Yeah.
more, the one that was still standing in the season, but it got shaded around like 3 o'clock in the summer. The ones that are further, they get more like sun until like 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
The loofahs produced so much that it took, even though these were cattle panels supported, and it just bit them like a roller coaster.
No way.
Because we had on some of them up to like 80 loofahs, and some of them are as long as my leg. Like,
Oh
they're
my
giant. So I tell
goodness.
people, and I did a pretty extensive YouTube video on how to grow the loofahs
Okay.
and how not to grow the loofahs because of my experience with the.
So sometimes it's probably better to like control them and break some of
Yeah.
them off.
Well,
so that they're not so many.
Well, and they are. The interesting thing is the loofahs when they're very small are edible. Like we had a lady, we had a lady from, she's from Thailand, and we were down here like one Saturday or Sunday, just down here doing work, and she talked to Lawrence, my husband, and she said, "Oh my gosh, is your wife from Thailand?" And he was like, "No, I wasn't down here." He said, "No, she's from Alabama." And she said, "Well, you know what you're growing?" And he's like, "Yeah, they're loofahs." No, we eat these. So we gave her some, and we gave her some seed because it's a delicacy. And it's very, I was wanting mine to get the loofahs for the bath. So
What
we
do they
never
taste
ate it.
like?
I don't know, I never ate any.
Huh.
Isn't that funny? Because we were trying to hoard all the
We
loofahs.
might have to try that.
Yeah, I think that, it's well known that so you could remove some and then, but like let's say we only planted maybe 14 plants and we got maybe 180 loofahs. Like, when I don't mean little loofahs, I mean the
Big
big
ones.
ones. And, we're here, you wanna get those in like mid-April. We were didn't get ours until June last year, so I can't imagine, because we had to build the loofah arches. But if you had a nice fence,
Yeah.
you could, a
I've
lot
got
of people
a
do
nice
that.
privacy fence.
I think you would do that, you just need to train them as they're going,
Okay. I need more things to do. But you
Yeah,
know
the
what?
loofah is really, I am like, so many people we met at Atlanta Market when our products go in like a lot of like, farm gift shops and,
Yeah.
and I met a lot of people, like I met this girl from Oklahoma who had the largest, watermelon farm, I think, in America.
Oh, wow, really?
And they're growing loofahs. And I met another people from Ohio, and they are a farm, and I sent them loofah seeds. So I'm trying to make the new trend is to grow your own.
Hey,
Because I use mine in the shower, and then like the little smaller ends, that's how I wash all the dishes.
Well, everybody could use a good exfoliating.
Yes.
And you can use it and it will scratch up all your things.
No, it's
So,
perfect.
yeah.
So we're excited. The loofahs were very exciting last year.
I geek out on that sort of thing too, because I think, oh, getting gifts, I think I could get these as
Yes.
gifts. I could put together a little gift basket, loofahs for everybody on the way around at Christmas time.
Yes,
Sounds
they're
just
perfect.
just sounds just like something I would do. Okay, so as far as the vegetables that you like to plant, what were you saying someone's just starting out? What should they start with? Because for me, I like to be successful my first go around. I don't wanna go with something that's too hard to keep up with.
Right. I think, well, first of all, make sure it's something you're gonna eat, unless you're gonna, that's what I always would tell people is make sure you're planting something you like, because if you
Yeah.
don't like radishes and you're never
Really
gonna eat
don't
radishes,
want
there's
it.
no point to waste that space.
Yes, exactly.
But, like, radishes are such an easy thing, like, especially if you got them in now, because I think there's some maybe might need 35 or 40 days.
And you mean seeds?
Seeds, those you can
Okay.
do seeds. The radishes, very easy.
Okay, I'm gonna do that.
Radishes, I always planted, it takes a long time to harvest. I love beets.
I'm
and-
starting to, which
yeah.
is the weirdest thing.
Yes, I
because
love
never
beets.
like
I always
them.
did that. And then, of course, cucumbers, but I always trellis mine, and that would be just that I would take at the back of my raised bed, I would take something that you could turn into a square for tomato cage, but I elongated it, and I found you're trying to go vertical. I even grew cantaloupes years ago that way going vertical.
Okay.
You're wanting to go vertical if you're in a raised bed to save space.
That makes sense.
Tomatoes, I like, pretty much, I think you're not gonna fail unless you get the squash borer, which in our humidity, a lot of people do, squash and zucchini, because that seems very, to me, that's a very successful, and I've done seed and I've done plants, but I mean, usually, like I said, you can find the small ones. Things like corn, I tell people, I mean, if you have kids and you just wanna do it, but you're really holding a lot of space.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
You need a lot of corn.
You need a lot of corn.
To
I mean, you're
grow
gonna, that
corn.
space, and you have like 8 years of corn.
Yeah.
Not so much, but that's really good. Years ago, I grew edamame, and that was good. But I grew bush beans, and then I also grew a Chinese red middle bean, which it's very long. I got it from rareseed.com, and we did the farmers markets. We would sell those every time because no one really had them. They're long, and no matter how long they get, they don't have any strings. And then you break them and just saute them, and those were really good Chinese red middle. So that's great. You know, here at this time of year, we're already into March almost. You know, the lettuces, you have to just be very careful because as heat comes in, it turns them bitter.
Okay.
So, but there was one, I think years ago that I did that was, I think I got it from Rare Seeds too, and it was called like a Rocky Top or Tennessee. I mean, it was some kind of kick on Tennessee, but it was for hot, for somewhere with heat. But, you know, usually, right, you know, you need to get your lettuces in like now.
Right.
For them, because once you get into July and August, it's gonna get hot again. You know, it's gonna get bitter.
Yeah, okay.
But then be thinking, like, a lot of times I would keep spinach in my freezer, the seed, and once I thought it was gonna be a little cooler, like August, the end of August, September, I would put it in and you can have spinach, you know.
Okay.
So there's a lot of just balancing
Yeah,
of what you have.
so I've been hearing about succession planning. Is that sort of what that is? So
Yes,
like
so it's sort of, yes.
Season's done, replace it.
You replace right behind it. And that's kinda like here in the flower farm, like, we have ranunculus and anemones right now. Those went in October. We've been babying that whole section since then. So they only will probably another month. But it depends on how the heat. And then the next succession planting, we'll have something that goes in right behind it.
Yeah.
And then usually that planting comes, and then we pull that planting, and then we put in a cover crop of buckwheat.
Okay.
Behind it. You know, and you know, for a common gardener, you're not having to give back as much as we are, but we're putting so much volume out. You know, like my bed at home, I never did anything but put the leaves back in after the first time that I made it, but I had a mixture of a 3-part mixture. One part was peat moss, which some people do or do not like. This is just the recipe I've used. Some people go to the cocoa core or whatever you call it, but that's just for me, it was readily available. The peat moss, because it's a very sterile mixture, you're not gonna get seeds in there. Then I put in vermiculite to drain, but it holds water. And then the last part is a combination of earthworm castings, mushroom compost, cow manure, and if I had like sheep manure, things like that, I would put in. But that was at home where I didn't have that, because you can buy a bag of the manure. You know, those are the things that kind of like I would do a mixture, a third of that, and literally, I remember my neighbor came over and said, "You have a garden, your garden's like Arnold Schwarzenegger. What have you done to it?" I'm like, "I have done nothing, but I invested in that soil."
It was rich soil.
Yes, I think, and I really think that is from using the compost.
I just think it all makes sense. Like the more nutritious it looks and feels, and you know, the better it's.
Like, you don't want your soil to be full of bark.
No.
Like, the worst thing you can do is when you open, you know, like I sometimes I have to get, a lot of times we try and mix things together, but you go and it's full of pine bark. Well, that is gonna leach out nitrogen. It's gonna pull nitrogen from your plants. So you wanna stay away from anything that has any kind of pine or like bark shavings in it. And that's a lot of people do that because they want to put filler in it, so.
Well, that, you know, I think about that though. I think about, like, you know, you don't want to, there's some things you don't want to buy in plastic.
Right.
You know, so why would you want to grow your food in something that's going to, or have in your soil something you're going to ingest?
Yes.
You know, but I just think in society it's better not to think about all that.
I know.
You know, but I think we need to start paying a little more attention, and that's one reason I'm like, you know, let's do a community garden, or let's encourage people to grow their own, because I just think it's important to eat well, and it's we can all do it, you know, with a
Right.
little bit of work. And really, by the time you go after work, you go to the grocery store, you buy the groceries, you go home, you know, you could have planted something, you know, in a little bit of dirt, and maybe it'll
Right.
yield something.
Yeah, the other thing that I always like is, bell peppers and like, jalapenos. Those
I love
tend to take,
those.
the bell peppers tend to take, and are here a long time to really become a harvest. They were, for me, always more later, like
They like
August.
the heat.
So like the heat, it just seemed like you're like, oh, am I ever getting a pepper?
It makes sense, they're hot peppers, they're like.
Right. And there was an eggplant called Oswald eggplant. It's from Iraq, and it was more an eggplant, almost more like not a softball, but a little more oval.
Yeah.
And it was really good, like that eggplant. But you know, a lot of people you may not like eggplant, but I like to make
I
eggplant
want to
parmesan.
learn how to cook more with eggplant and
Right.
leeks. I want to learn how to cook more with leeks.
Right.
They look like something I would enjoy. I just have never, those aren't vegetables I was brought up eating.
Right.
So I'm like, how do I learn at this point to cut that? It's just looking at recipes and trying things.
Right, and I think a lot of it has to do with the types of herbs you use. Like I use a
Yeah.
lot of herbs, and I feel like some of my most delicious dishes are because of the herbs. And I think, you know, a lot of times growing, you know, some people you just, that's all pepper. I mean, no one really
Keep
cook
it
that
simple,
much. Yeah,
right?
but you know, I think now there's so much with different herbs that you can grow that you can really change that flavor profile in food.
Do you cook any herbs for medicinal purposes?
I don't. I never have, and that's also interesting. You know, I'm doing like I have a lot of dyer's chamomile that because we dye with plants with the flower
Yeah.
too. That's a
Yeah,
big thing we
that's
do. A lot of those are dye plants. But I was kind of like, I wish I had done the white, you know, the regular chamomile. I was looking at that a day or two ago. But like that chamomile, I started those seeds last August, and we put those in October. So they're
Okay.
pretty nice size. So some of the things are almost like what's called a biennial, and it takes one season for them to blend. So that may be how the ones with the traditional white chamomile, you know, could be. Years ago, I grew this plant called a toothache plant. I just liked it for the flower. They said you could chew on it, and it make if you had a gum, it
Oh, it
hurt,
kinda
it would numb it, but I never did. I mean, I just used it for the flower. But I haven't done, you know, really any medicinal, but it's, you know, now that I'm kind of getting in that edible flower mindset, you know, I kind of have gone down that road
I think it's pretty
Different things.
fascinating.
Mhm.
I mean, really, I think there is a plant for every ailment out there to a degree.
yes, and
I
it's
believe
just,
that.
yeah, and I think there's a lot of people who can go and are trained, and that's very interesting to me, that have the background of how to use the herbs, and luckily for us in our climate, you know, a lot of those things are perennial, so you could have like a medicinal herb garden, or I think a tea garden.
A tea garden.
would be really nice.
Yeah, I'm getting into that these days too,
Mhm.
learning some really, really good teas. So what is your favorite vegetable, just for everyone else?
Oh, tomato, for sure.
Me
But it has to be the fresh, I mean, it's not the grocery store tomato. It's like my dad grows the best tomatoes. And so he, you know, I'm always just like, the flavor of his tomato is so good. So the tomato, I mean, I'm not a picky eater at all. There are very few things that I do not
Yeah,
eat.
yeah.
But tomato, like a fresh tomato,
It's
Very-
something special,
very good.
and it is good on white bread with mayonnaise.
Oh,
I
it
just
is.
gotta say it,
it's so good.
There's
It's good on
something
every, I mean, I like it on
and
everything.
salt and pepper.
Yeah, and we did a lot of, when my daughter, we had that garden, we did a lot of just taking the tomato and we sliced it, and we had the cucumber, and we did basil and did just balsamic. So almost
Yeah.
like a caprese almost,
Yeah.
but we did a lot of that COVID summer. You know, because every day we go, okay, we're gonna do this, this is our
That's good eating.
traditional side with it, but
Yeah.
yeah, so, I mean, it's hard, cause I love cucumbers. I mean, I love,
I know.
sliced, I mean, I'm not picky at all.
No.
If I'm the dinner guest, I'm not the person you have to say, what will you eat? You know, I'm not that person, cause I'm probably gonna eat whatever.
I will if it's the quality of food that I want to
Right.
eat. I don't mean to sound snotty about that, but I won't eat like unhealthy food.
Right.
I just won't. But that's the place I'm at right now.
And that's okay,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
Yeah, so I'm digging on the vegetables. So I'm all about that. I'm looking forward to that with the garden. What about fruit? Do you grow any fruit, berries, melon?
I have had thornless raspberries here for, I think, 4 years, and last year they just did not do well. So we removed that section, which I love them. I used to take them and I'd freeze them and do smoothies.
Yeah.
Love them. They're amazing. And then this year we did a whole section of bee balm, which is another, kind of medicinal. So we have a new section that we started last August, and most of it made it through the cold. But I'm sad about that. But my parents have blackberries and blueberries, so I get a lot of the berries from them. And at my house this year, in the bed that had all my wonderful cool weather vegetables that didn't make it.
Yeah.
I have some new strawberries that are ever bearing.
Yeah, I saw this thing. Of course, Pinterest is a dangerous world to go into sometimes because you see really great ideas until you try to do them. But anyway, they got gutters that you put on your house, and they flipped them over and filled them with soil, and they grew like trailing herbs and even little strawberries, and they just kind of grew down the fence. And I thought, well, if you're kind of short on ground space, that might be a good way to kind of grow some vines or something that grows.
Yes.
That you can grow downward.
Yeah, I think so. And these strawberries, I think, are somewhat new. And I think I got 3 at the end of the season last year. I was up. There's this nursery in Chattanooga called The Barn. I don't know if you know it. Okay, it's amazing. Like, you could spend a whole day. They have house plants. They have bedding plants. They have shrubs. They have a whole edible section.
Wow.
That's where I got all this beautiful, rare, colorful everything. And my garden was so beautiful.
What's their name?
It's called The Barn, and it's
The Barn.
just off, like if you're going into Chattanooga, I can't remember the right, like you'll be driving, it's like right off to the right, but go ahead, you're gonna spend a half a day.
Yeah, to eat lunch or good cheese.
Yes, because they have it's amazing, this place,
Well, I
and
gotta go.
yeah, everything you can think of, but that's where I found those strawberries, and they had I really wanted a fig tree, they had different
Oh,
fig
I love
trees, they had one that
figs.
was from LSU, that was developed through LSU that does our climate better. They had all sorts of things. So that was when I went, was like October. So I can't imagine what it's like this side when they're getting all their vegetables in, because this is when they were mums and pansies and violas and
kind of the quieter season.
pumpkins. So I can't even. We literally spent a half a day there.
Yeah. Yeah. See, well, I would love to go do that. That would be fun. But I asked about the fruit too because I love melons, and I'm like, well, but then I think about their ground, they kind of spread
Right.
out and they take up so much space.
Well, and that's why the cantaloupes that year I went vertical. Like you could do a cantaloupe panel, and
you could do that with squash too, right?
But you can definitely go vertical. Like I always go vertical on cucumbers because it makes your not have as many bruises. Not bruises, but how that lays it on the ground.
Yeah, almost like a bed sore.
Yeah,
on
yes.
it or
But
something.
I think I have cattle panels out back that we do the loop arches that we may change those up to do some things this year. So a cattle panel could be an arch. You can go vertical. I would look at vertical gardening and you'd be shocked at how much you can go vertical with.
It's interesting. We just don't think about thinking outside the box, like
Right.
literally. So I'm looking. So with the community garden, I'm thinking about doing. I'm looking at maybe having about 20 people contribute, and then I want to any overflow between everybody that contributes to just donate, because I know it could yield a lot depending on how much I plant, right?
Right.
So I want to dedicate one big raised bed planter to mainly herbs, and kind of, so is it better to leave things in with their own selves, like leave herbs with herbs, or can you mix them with like the tomatoes? And I've heard that there's some flowers that are good to plant with your vegetables.
Yes, and it's interesting, a few years ago, I don't know what year it was, we grew a lot of lemongrass. I was really into cooking with lemongrass, and that's very hard to find. So, and it loved the heat here. It was so big, and I put it beside some tomatoes and something else, and I had like 0 pests. It was very strange.
See, that's where I'm curious.
It's like the companion planting, is what they call it. And then some people will say marigolds help.
Yes.
I've heard that. We grow giant marigolds and we still get pests sometimes on them. So, but I felt like that lemongrass really did well. But then there are things that get a lot of aphids and things, and you can call that kind of a trap plant. So even though I love the nasturtium, once at a certain time they may get a lot of aphids, but then that takes, they're going to that plant versus everything else. So sometimes, we had milkweed, and it was like the milkweed, everything went all over the milkweed. Everything. Good, bad. It was like, but it kept it off other things. So sometimes you're looking for those trap crops, and like amaranthus is another one that it attracts things, sadly, because the leaves, you really don't, they look so ugly, and that can be salty like a spinach. But yes, you can companion plant, and for me, that lemongrass that year was like incredible.
Yeah, That sounds good. Well, that was what I was curious about, because I know you probably could just plant whatever with whatever, but it might be good to know what can complement something else, or
Yes.
you don't have to be so strict with it to where we have to keep all the herbs together and we have to keep all the, beans together or whatever. There are things that actually work together.
Right, and sometimes you have to think about the way we laid out our raised bed was based on the position of it, because if it was north and south, I wanted the tall things.
Okay.
You know what I mean, on the north side, and like my cucumbers were on the north side, and my others were on the south, my shorter things were on the south side, because the way
You didn't want to create shade.
yeah, my son was.
Yeah.
I mean, because the way, in my yard, the way it was, it needed to be, so you sort of have to think about that, like we think about that when we're planting the flowers, of I need to have the tallest things,
Yeah.
based on where the sun goes.
You don't want them to cast a shadow.
Exactly, so that's another thing that you really have to think about is watch the sun, and it changes, like it's interesting when you come into the farm, those beds right at the front, they are just blazing sun from like mid-April to October, and then once the sun changes, they get totally almost all shade, all there.
So do you, go it all by the Old Farmer's Almanac?
I don't, I have the Natasha almanac, so my thing is like, I never plant something that I do not want to die until, that isn't cold hardy, like a regular annual, after April 21st, because I've been burned too many times.
Okay, you got your.
My hard day is the 21st, and I'm gonna be looking, like, I don't even, because we start some things from seed, we buy some that are plugs, and plugs are like I would get 210 something.
Okay.
Like, I don't even have them shipped here until now. I know these annuals, because I've been out here trying to cover, it looks like a carnival out here.
It's like game day for you.
Because if you lose it, it's gone. I can't, if those plugs took 12 weeks to plant, to get ready to go on the ground, 10 to 12, it's gone. I've done that many times.
Okay.
April 21st is the day.
That's your day, that's your game day.
Yes.
All right, well, when I started talking about this garden, everyone's like, the Old Farmer's Almanac, you gotta read it, you gotta plan it, you gotta go by it, and I'm like, okay, everybody calm down.
Yeah, I haven't, I go through it, no matter what it says, I've just been burned too many times.
Yeah.
Like, I would say out of 11 years, I can remember 4 times of getting really burned, because I've got it in before April 15th, people used to say April 15th.
Okay.
It's after April 21st.
Okay, so if people are gonna start I know it depends on the plant you're trying to grow, but generally seeding starts about now?
Yes, some of our stuff we started that are really slow growers, like maybe 2 weeks ago, but like I wanna say, there's one company I buy a lot of seeds. They sell to home growers and they sell to professional commercial growers. It's called Johnny Seeds, and you can go to their website, like just johnnyseeds.com, and you can put in seed starting date calendar or seed starting calendar, and they have like a tool where you can put in my last frost date, and it calculates, I think, pretty much all vegetables and all flowers, and it gives you like I want to say, like if I said my frost date is the 21st, they're probably gonna say you need to wait another week. I mean, they're cautious too, but it kind of gives you a plus or minus date. And also, like for us, we start seeds in little containers, and then we start on what's called a soil block.
Okay.
It's like where you get a certain type of soil, and you have this little metal hand tool, and you make little blocks, and you put them on trays.
Okay.
Like for us, when we do those in the soil blocks, it's so much faster than a traditional method, so we have to we're still learning. That's why we started those zinnias. We're still learning. We just started the soil blocking this year. Okay, when is too early? Because you don't want too early, you gotta baby step for a long time.
Yeah.
And just space-wise, because we don't have a greenhouse.
Yeah.
So, it's figuring out where we can put everything.
So you have your safe date, and that's what we're going by.
We're going by the 21st of April. I mean, if there's things like, we're gonna put Lysianthus out the end of March, but they can take a little cool.
Okay.
Like if you were putting out, the broccoli, the cauliflower, the, Brussels sprouts, they can take cold. Spinach, all that can take cold. They just don't like heat. But you would need that, they should be in the ground now.
Okay.
But if you're starting those summer things, you think of summer, the seeds should be going.
So I'm gonna do my garden party day, where everybody's gonna come over and help me plant stuff. It's gonna be April 1st, so it's mainly, we're gonna go ahead and have plants by this
Yes.
point.
Well, you can do it. And just know you will have to, you may have to cover.
Okay, yeah, cause so it's early, right?
That's early. But I know you're excited. And it could be, I mean, it's 85 degrees today.
Yeah, isn't it weird? It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's perfect. I mean, it's literally 85. It's just, I have been burned before.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure. We don't know what the weather's doing.
But you could always, depending on how large your space is, it could be covered.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I'm gonna have like 4 really big size, lifted above ground containers and.
Yes, because you can always throw a sheet over it.
Yeah,
I mean, I have
yeah.
like agrabah and thing, and that's what, we're always, those tunnels out there, they're up and down,
Yeah.
Depending on if it's below, 34, we're covering.
I'm more worried about squirrels because they're in abundance in that
Yes.
neighborhood, but we're gonna put a netting over it and see how long it takes them to figure out how to
Yes.
get into that.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I think they'll make quick work of it. We'll see.
Oh, yeah,
They're crafty a little bit.
my funniest story, and I would do anything if I had this on video, because no one, when I told my kids and my husband the story, so it's almost like a kitchen garden, it's right outside of my kitchen, the rickety raised bed that I have in my house, and so I had a lot of tomatoes, and I was just fighting those squirrels. I mean, they would come, and I'm like, you just have one tomato, just don't take a bite out of every tomato.
Yeah, just take one.
So I came outside, and here in Mooresville, we have like a little town pool right there, and we were gonna go to the pool. The kids had already been down with my sister-in-law, and we forgot something, so I came back home, and I got it, and I went outside, and there was a squirrel, and he had a tomato in his mouth.
How cute.
So he ran up the tree in my backyard, and I was like, fussing, why don't you do this? And he took the tomato and threw it down at me. I mean, I'm sure he dropped it,
Right.
but it fell
Well,
it fell right at my feet, and to this day, I was like, y'all aren't gonna believe this.
That's hilarious.
But I did fight the squirrels a lot, which is sad.
Well, they are. I think they're mean little creatures because I watch them like torture the dogs, and they know what they're doing. So
Right.
I think he threw the tomato at me.
It fell. I mean, he was way up in the tree, and I told people that was the strangest thing I've ever seen. Like he threw it down at me.
It's funny.
But I don't know what to tell you on that to help, because that's tough. We had a rabbit. We've never had rabbits in our 11th season, and this year we came down and our Rebecca was destroyed, and then they started on our Bukurum. And we
with
put
the
out,
raised beds, hopefully
you'll be good.
rabbits
The
will
rabbits
be
you'll be good, but like with our here, so we put a rabbit trap out. In those rabbits, I put every kind of delicious thing you can think of. We could see a camera out there. We could see the 2 rabbits. They were giant, running around, not near the trap. I mean, why don't they go to the trap? They have a whole buffet out there. So then finally, I went to Rural King in Huntsville because I was looking at chicken wire, because our fence over the year has just eroded because we're fenced.
Okay.
And I could put my hand under some places, so we just took all that wire and went around, and luckily they're gone. But they were destroying. I was so upset.
I know. I'm not gonna have to worry about the rabbits, but the squirrels, I'm gonna have to keep an eye on. But that's okay. It'll be part of the process. We'll do our best.
Yes, and I tried like cayenne pepper with the squirrel. I mean, I tried a lot of things with the squirrels.
They're crafty.
Yes.
They really are crafty little critters. So if we're gonna get ready to close, but I want you to tell people, like, if people are intimidated by the thought of growing something, is it as complicated as they're making it out to be?
No, it's really not. I mean, I tell people, when I would teach the raised bed classes years ago, people felt like they'd get to the moon before they could grow a garden. And I'm like, listen, this is not rocket science for all of our people here in Huntsville.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically, soil, water, and air. I mean, it's really not hard.
Just don't forget about it.
Don't forget, you can't plant it and walk away. I mean,
No,
you have to
tend to
tend to it and nurture it, and a lot of it is making sure you have it placed in the right lighting. When the light, what kind of lighting you need. You have the right kind of supports. I mean, it isn't just like easy peasy, but you can definitely.
Well, I like to think of it too as it's a way to get grounded and get connected to your environment and those sorts of things. I think for a lot of people, maybe that will give them a little bit of calm and peace in the day, tending to something that's going to get back to you, that whole sort of thing. I think it's therapeutic.
Yes, I've always said that my best thinking occurs when I'm weeding or cutting, harvesting flowers. Because, I'm out here, I might, even if I have my headphones in or nothing, there's no other noise going on. So I think not only a way to connect to the land, but it's giving back for whether you think it's meditation. It's almost like a meditation to me, because
Sure.
it's just a repetitive and
Well,
you're
it's
thinking.
mindless busy work, and you
Yes.
can get something accomplished and just let your mind wander, because you know what you're doing, it's very meditative.
Right, and you're accomplishing something.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
for somebody who is, wanting to accomplish something, and a healthy eating and nutrition is important, this is a great project to be part of.
So you can do it, you can grow yourself some little herbs, and that's an easy place to start, maybe a little tomato plant, a little cherry
Mhm.
tomato plant, even if you're in an apartment. I think it's just a way for you to learn a little bit more about food and taking care of something. Maybe start with a plant and then a dog and then a child.
Yes.
Follow the breadcrumbs, but start somewhere and give it a try. But anything you want to add, anything like what y'all got going on, anything coming up?
Well, we're gonna try, we haven't been open as much really since COVID, and we're gonna try this spring to have some Fridays that are called Fresh Flower Fridays, where people can come to the farm. If you wanna buy a bouquet, buy a bouquet. If you just wanna come walk around, that's fine too. It'll be free, of course, and you can walk through the flowers, and then hopefully we have lambs by then. So we're trying to do like mid-April, mid to the end of April, and do that maybe up through Mother's Day. And then even in the summer, just have some time when people could come out, and maybe we may have some photography nights where this would be maybe pay like maybe $15, just to keep the crowd, where people can come out at the golden hour, and if you want to just photograph plants, because there's a lot of places that you don't have places to do that.
Or pretty little girls in front of flowers.
Yeah, so we're thinking about doing that. We've never done that before. There's a couple things, but the Fresh Flower Fridays we're excited about, just because it's fun just to have, if they just want to come out and walk around, or walk. Mooresville is beautiful that time of year, just to walk around, and if the bakery is open, or Lila's little house. So it's just like stepping back in time. So it's a great way, to do that. And then I encourage people, there's a beautiful bike trail at the Wheeler Wildlife Refuge right back here. You can gravel ride right along the Tennessee River. You go under the Tennessee River Bridge there. And, there's great little trails. So many people in the area, they do, like, I think, was it Monday? There's so many people riding their bikes. This is a great place. Well, especially if you have kids and you're looking somewhere flat and there's not a lot of traffic, just riding up here, that's a great place to bring your bikes. So
great idea.
Come out and get outside.
So that in next podcast, I want to talk to you about considering getting some urban chickens.
Oh yes.
I really am. And so that's another podcast, but soon, because I'm feeling an itch. But I'm a researcher. I want to know what I'm getting into.
Right.
They're living things, and if I get them, they're mine.
Yes.
And I want to be very responsible. So I'm really going to research that and sit with that in my heart for a little bit before I do that. But I think there's a lot of people out there who have them and love them and do well with them, and I think it's really cool to have that.
Yes, we're getting more this spring. Ours that we have are old. I don't think we haven't had an egg in like weeks.
You got old kids?
No, they're literally like 8 years old. They are living the life. They're retired. But we were gonna get them last year, and then just time got away with kids graduating, and things. And so I have a friend who, it's really a neat story. I went to high school with him, and he has girls who are our kids, are older age, and then he adopted 4 little boys. I went to Guatemala somewhere, but they're younger, the 4 brothers. And so he wanted to teach them about responsibility, and they got chickens like about this time last year.
Okay, how's it
And
going?
so, really good. And now he's gotten into incubating, and they're hatching.
Oh my goodness.
And so I told him, okay, I don't really want to do the baby section again, but I would like to have some that I can just put, they're teenagers.
Yeah.
And I'll pay them a very fair price.
That's cool.
Because he's trying to teach them business. And so he's in the so that's where I'm hoping that I get from my friend.
What a great dad.
Yeah, oh, he's great. I knew him, and it's neat he had like 3 or 4 girls before, and then they adopted these boys.
And how educational.
Oh yeah, so he's always asking me questions. So I told him, Bobby, now I'm serious. He just had his first hatch, and they were so sad. They didn't incubate in it. They didn't all hatch. I said, well, that's learning. You have to do things. So I'm hoping to add. I usually order from somewhere, but I'm gonna try. I want to support their endeavor. You know. So anyway, so we have to get some, because I am now buying eggs from a friend of mine who is a vet who has hens, and I feel like I'm like this dealer trying to get eggs from her.
Give me some eggs.
Because it's another thing. once you had a fresh egg, it's
It's
very like a
so
fresh
hard.
tomato. Like just like right now, I got 3 dozen from her, and I'm like down to like my last dozen,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, who are
Is
we?
it
I'm like,
worthy to eat?
we
it
can't
right
have an
now?
omelet tonight because you know, because I like an egg and avocado for my breakfast every day. So I'm like,
Yes.
yeah. So I'm like, we have got to get more chickens this spring.
Chickens are cool, and you really turned me on to chickens, coming out here and seeing how beautiful they are, and they have a personality. I
And
mean,
yes, and ours eat fruit, and they're so happy. I mean, our chickens.
they were strutting around. I
Yes.
was like, I like it. So anyway, I'm considering it, but I will really think it through before I go there.
I think it's not that. I mean, especially given the right space, you know, and really for you, you need like 3.
Yeah, just enough to give me a few eggs. I don't even eat a lot of eggs, but when I eat eggs, I want good eggs.
Yes.
Oh, well. All right, well, thank you for having me. You just, as always, you're just fun to talk to. And now you're gonna give me a little bit, we're gonna look around, and I get to eat some flowers, which
Yes.
I can't wait to do that. But thank you so much. You've
You're
always
welcome.
been really good to me and accommodating. I really appreciate it, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, and tell everybody where to find me, like your Instagram, all of that stuff. We can't forget that.
Sorry, I got a call.
No, it's okay.
Okay. So, Instagram is just 1818farms.com. Also, if you go to YouTube, 1818 Farms, we have a lot more on the flower growing side.
Okay.
Some great tutorials there.
Okay.
And Facebook, all that, 1818farms.com.
Okay, all right, there we go. All right, well, thanks so much, and for now, we are out, everyone. Namaste.
I can't wait for you to try
Are
the,
you okay?
I know, I can't wait for you to try the nasturtium.
Yeah, I wanna try it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go sip water.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot, I've gone down the, and Mark says, you have to quit calling them edibles.
I know!
I said, it's edible flower!